commented some of my poor questions in here, but it does not mean that we have to do them. So just right at this moment, we'll do those at the end. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys an opportunity to kind of start to thinking to yourselves, like how familiar are you with brain structure at this moment and things like that. Before we get to this page, as we are doing creative interventions, I really want to encourage you guys to go ahead and while we're talking, if you guys are making notes, feel free to like make doodles and things like that. I think it's a great idea for you guys to kind of see how doodling can affect your own memory and this information. And so just kind of making a couple doodles here and there rather than writing the write out notes. And that would be something I would encourage you guys to do during this time, and it makes it fun and less boring. Okay, so I want to kind of explain a little bit about whole brain integration. It's this concept that I'm sure you guys have been familiar of this gentleman, Dan Siegel. He has opened up a whole new world of whole brain integration, interpersonal neurobiology, mindfulness. And so the concept of whole brain integration is that there's different domains in our brain that need to find a way to collectively work together. And in us collectively working together, then we have a greater sense of being and who we are. And it also helps us connect better to others and the whole idea of connecting to the world as a whole. And so it's just this great concept of recognizing how we can work on our own individual areas that can then expand bigger. With that in mind, there are 9 domains of whole brain integration. Those are consciousness, bilateral integration, vertical integration, memory, narrative, state integration, interpersonal integration, temporal integration, and transpirational integration. You don't have to remember all those, but we'll go through them as we work on the integrations with the interventions. What's important to know is that each of these integrations of these domains are individualized. They don't necessarily come as a whole until later on. It's kind of like almost like a staircase ripple effect. So in integrating bilateral integration, we can then have more tools to improve our vertical integration. And it creates more of a fruit salad than a smoothie. They don't necessarily mix all together, but they have different components. And without one, then you don't have the full fruit salad. And so you need kind of all of them, but it's not until we have that ability to integrate all of these as a whole that we are able to move forward. And so the concept in our practice as clinicians is to help our clients recognize how they can improve and build upon their domains each individually by selecting interventions and working with our clients individually and finding ways to make these improvements as a whole. It's something that we need to focus on working as smaller components and helping bring to awareness our clients' awareness of where they are so that they can make these next steps. And it sounds so far out there, and I realize that, and sometimes clients get that look on their face like, oh, what are you talking about? So sometimes then we have to step it back and help them understand where their brain is developmentally, understand how they can build it and use different components in therapy, in their world, in their day-to-day living that can help strengthen their brain and make it so that that integration down the future can happen. And understanding that as integration occurs, you're going to find much more strength in working with individuals and relationships and attachments and your self-confidence, all these different dynamics. So with that being said, one of the biggest misconceptions that I often hear is this lack of understanding that we should all be functioning at the same rate at the same time, and it's just not realistic. if we look at a neurotypical brain development, so no major life stressors going on in life, you still do not have full developmental capacity of your brain until you're roughly the age of 26, sometimes even later, but 26 is kind of that gauge. So with that understanding, you often get, I'll hear some parents say, like, even to their 18-year-olds, you're an adult, start acting like an adult. And I have to step back and say, but they're not quite an adult fully. They're still growing, they're still developmentally forming the different components of their brain to be able to make these improvements. And the biggest part of the brain that takes the longest and the one that seems to have the most conflict is that prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex is the one that helps you be able to develop thought processes and process different emotions, just really kind of establish the ways to communicate and the ways to take step by step directions and so forth. And so if we recognize that even a 20-year-old doesn't have that full prefrontal cortex developed, then we have to step back and understand that there has to be different approaches in our therapy process, in our works with our clients. Parenting work has to be different to be able to reach these younger children and younger adults at a different approach. In bringing awareness of the brain to each individual and to the families as a whole, we're helping them by recognizing where they can form healthier and stronger relationship bonds. They become more empathetic and aware on how to communicate with others, and recognizing where your individual needs are, where their individual needs are, and just the individual needs of the whole family unit. We're becoming more aware as there are these such subtle differences that we don't recognize when we're just traditionally talking in family therapy about what are your big issues going on. This helps us open up the door so much more. And also bringing to the brain awareness and utilizing expressive arts techniques in practice, we are also helping individuals bring forth possible trauma or stressful events that they may not have been aware of. These then learn to transition into the prefrontal cortex, which allows them to start processing it and verbalizing it rather than feeling and responding in our bodies. And so expressive arts is going to allow a deeper sense of self-exploration, a deeper sense of understanding where limits are, and recognizing these things. And then it also allows for a sense of repairing and an ability for us to find ways to integrate the physical brain, the mind of who you are and the being of you, and then your relationship with others, and bringing it all in as a whole and finding a sense of peace, finding a sense of how you can integrate all three and be content and happy about it and move forward. So if there happened to have been trauma in the past, we're then allowing them to embrace it and to find a way to use it in their world versus just distancing themselves. Or in family therapy, we're allowing the families to recognize how they can improve communications and acknowledge ways that they need to move forward all as a whole. So another thing that I want you guys to kind of consider is, how often do you guys utilize creative interventions with your clients? And think of, adults and geriatrics, teenagers, young kids, and then with that creativeness, what's your comfort level with it? Because your comfort level is going to make or break some of these creative interventions and how successful they are. So it's important for us to understand that traditional family therapy does not integrate children into therapy sessions and family therapy sessions often. I've met with several family therapists who have stated that if the child's too young to verbally communicate effectively, then they will opt not to have that child be in family therapy. Or if they feel like they can just work with the parents, then it fixes the whole issue anyways, so what's the point? I'm going to challenge all of that, because then you're missing an individual who is very much involved in that family and should be very much involved in that family therapy process. If you leave them out, then you're missing a whole nother dynamic of what can really be a part of the whole dynamic. Because of a child's or a teenager's brain development, it has to look different than your traditional talk family therapy. It cannot be a sit down talking one-on-one, because children aren't going to respond. They don't activate that way. They don't engage. So play therapy interventions or expressive arts interventions offer a unique opportunity for the children and the families to learn to engage together cohesively that will help foster that whole brain integration and simultaneously build upon their attachment levels so that they have a deeper sense of unity together. There are two different forms of play therapy approaches when you are implementing them into family therapy. One is a directive, and so the interventions that we're going to implement today are directive. Directive interventions are things with structure, rigidity, they have rules, they have limits set to them, instructions, things that the children and the family have to stay focused on. Non-directive, if that's something that you wanted to pursue more training, non-directive allows for that to be more open and learning to understand the child's individual world and dynamic. That takes a whole nother level. So today we're going to focus primarily on the directive techniques. In general, using techniques such as these ones that we'll review today, they help increase the child's and the families as a whole, their talk time. You'll notice that kids might become more verbal in their communication with others. You'll notice that they engage more with the entire family. You'll also notice that the entire family will engage more. They tend to be more open and responsive once you can break past some of the barriers. There are some barriers with family members' resistance if they aren't comfortable with that creativity, and that's where your comfort level is essential. You have to be incredibly comfortable with how you engage, what you do. You have to be willing to be goofy and obnoxious and make them laugh. Without being able to do that, then the family's going to be more rigid, and it's not going to feel, you're not going to get the flow. So just kind of keep that in mind, that the resistance is going to come from how you are presenting it as well. You also might get some resistance in families saying, well, we're just playing, what is this doing? And so the interventions that I'll walk you through, they explain the specific roles and the objectives of the interventions. And so helping educate parents is a huge factor to helping this to be successful, helping parents understand that their engagement in the play makes this worthwhile. So when we include families in play therapy, and I know I'm repeating myself a little bit, overall, the family attachments will strengthen. It'll be something that if they're able to find that cohesiveness in the family therapy through these expressive arts activities, then they're going to have a deeper bond and a greater relationship to each other. It's going to help expand their emotional awareness of one another. They're going to help improve communication and understand, like I said, that there's different brain components that are going on with different individuals and they need to communicate differently. Their engagement, as we know that when we have heightened endorphins, we tend to have a heightened sense of awareness and it increases that development of memory. So then we have families that are honing in on memories that are more positive, that create a sense of unity. I know that if I look into childhood, like you remember the happy times the most, and that's what's important here, is to allow happy memories to form. It creates an opportunity for the families and the children to learn appropriate problem-solving techniques and strategies, so helping them recognize how they can work together if things are different, if we have different opinions, and finding ways to solve the mysteries that might be going on in day-to-day life, so that when they encounter conflicts at home, they know how to work around them a little bit better. It also gives both, and this is one of my favorite things, it gives children and adults a increased sense of autonomy. You will see both children and the adults feel more proud of what they do, and they become excited, they feel more independent, they feel more confident in what they can do. With endorphins, we have an increased ability and sense of trust and safety. We tend to be more at ease and trusting others when we're happy versus when we are nervous or scared. And then it also helps each individual establish their own sense of identity. They establish who they are individually in the family unit, so that they themselves are a part of the fruit salad, not a smoothie. So the first intervention we're going to go through, and I'm going to give you the directions, and then I have a quick little glimpse that you guys can look through. Is one of my favorites. It's called the Fishbowl activity or whatever. So the activity itself allows the family to work together and find ways to cohesively collaborate, but it also gives the therapist a good insight as to what's going on and what they can do to kind of help manage. So it's a great kind of assessment. This is something I try to do in one of my first couple sessions, family sessions, so that I can see where the family dynamics are. And the families they all love it. And it's pretty funny. And I'll even have some families that say that they take it home and they hang it up on their wall to remind them. But you get a big poster board and you got some coloring supplies, you get some tin foil, tissue paper, different cardboard, glitter, the works, even feathers, whatever kind of like artsy crafty activities you guys don't mind, with some glue. And so you invite the family to draw a member, or each member of their family, as a fish, and it has to be placed in this this fishbowl poster board. And so some families will draw out a fishbowl, some families keep it normal, and that's okay. But they all have to work together to establish what each individual's fish looks like. And so you might have an individual that thinks that they look like a rainbow fish, where another one might say, no, you look like an octopus. And so then you get some really strange looking fish going on, but it creates an opportunity for them to work together. You don't really take any role in this. This is an opportunity for the therapist to kind of step back, and the family works individually. The only other instruction that you're going to offer for them is that there has to be some special characteristics of these individual fish that have them accurately reflect who they are individually. And then they have to be placed on there. So you're going to glue them wherever they feel like they fit. And that can vary depending on who they are. At the end of the activity, I always encourage the families to step aside, and I want them to kind of think about what is really going on in their fish world. What do they think it looks like? What was it like doing this together? Sometimes they come up with different names for their fish, and where the scenery that the fish might belong in, but then their own individual personal perceptions. As you're doing this, keep a close eye out for what kind of challenges might the family be encountering. Are they encountering any kind of challenges with communicating? Are they challenging with one person kind of dictating how it all goes versus another? How do the parents respond? How do the children or the other individuals respond? Just kind of all the different dynamics, kind of pay attention to those, because those are then all going to be hints for you to know what you need to work on in your family therapy sessions. So this is a quick little sample. This is something that I did a mock of one that bits and parts of things that I remember seeing in other therapy sessions. So your fish and fish world can be whatever you want. So we've got some crabs, we've got an octopus, a dolphin, and a couple different fish. And so kind of think to yourself, take a minute and kind of think, how might you interpret this if you see this? Like, what might the crab mean to you as an outsider? And they're at the bottom of the bowl. And then you've got this octopus that seems to be pretty angry, or he's got maybe a worried face going on. What might that represent? Then the different fish placements. You've got one that's upheld up high. Well, both fish are up higher than everyone else. The dolphin's kind of in the middle. Does that mean that the dolphin's a mediator? Things to kind of explore. This is very subjective to your own opinions. But these are things that you can kind of pick up on and recognize, are they something to value? Does this have meaning? And so in the one that I worked in, I do remember the kids dictated that their parents were the crabs at the bottom of the bowl. And that's something that stood out to me as a means of, hey, these kids feel like their parents are a little crabby. And they were, it was an unhealthy relationship on how they work together. So things like that can help us recognize how we can help our individual families a little bit stronger in a little deeper sense. So like I said, in doing this activity, your families are now having to increase their collaboration between each other because they're being forced to work together. You are exploring the family dynamics, and then you're encouraging the sense of self-expression. Each individual gets to express themselves on who they feel and recognize what they might be like. When we look at whole brain integration, how this fits into that dynamic, it actually fits into 3 of the domains of the 9 domains. So the first one is that integration of consciousness, I apologize. So it's bringing to the surface underlying thoughts and emotions that they weren't even aware of. So with that family where the children dictated that the parents were crabs, they didn't necessarily ever verbally express that they felt that their family was crabs, but in doing this expressive arts activity, they were able to bring that to awareness. I was then able to help talk about that with them to help them find words to verbalize it. It also allows for a narrative integration. We are now able to create a narrative of what's going on in their world, make sense of how everyone's working together, how the family dynamics are. You might be able to encourage families to tell a story of what this looks like for them, what each individual fish might be going through. But this helps create a narrative in the individual world and then a cohesive world at a greater level of what the family dynamics are. You are now allowing that family to make sense of their world. And then it also allows for an interpersonal integration. Again, the ability for the collaboration and families to have a sense of unity and connection to one another. They are now visually seeing how their family all fits all into one bowl and how they all make sense of themselves in that bowl, within that bowl. And it creates an attachment. And then during the activity and the engagement for each individual member of the family to work together in building and strengthening their bonds and communication, that's all a sense of interpersonal integration. So in doing an activity like this, we've already touched base on 3 of the 9 domains of whole brain integration. Another activity that is really, really popular one, I would say, is straw hockey. It offers for the families to do something a little bit more competitive and be goofy about it. This is something that they aren't being judged, or they don't feel like they're being judged with their artwork. They're just having fun. And so it's something really unique and different for them. And it helps to strengthen their relationship. This is actually an intervention that is used in TheraPlay, which is a practice that uses to help children build stronger attachments with their family or caregivers. So in this activity, each family member is going to get a straw, and I usually pair up I let the kids pick who they want to challenge, and then we'll reverse and let the parents choose who they want to challenge. And so, but each person gets their own individual straw, and it's just a normal straw. And then a variety of small objects. I try to go with some really, really light ones and then increase to a little bit heavier and stronger. So you've got like maybe some cotton balls, a piece of paper, M&Ms, a penny. I wouldn't go much heavier than a penny because the penny is a little hard, but it makes it a little bit challenged. And then some get to know you questions, or really you can implement whatever kind of questions you want. I like to use the get to know you questions to kind of help challenge the family in improving their communication and really understanding who each individual is. So you're gonna have a table, and you're gonna put this object in the middle of the table, and 2 of the family members, whoever's competing at the time, are going to blow into their straw, and they have to try to get the object to blow across the table and land on the other side so that they get a point. With that, each time you get your point, they then get to ask the other person a question. So one of those get to know you questions, and they can be, like I said, really simple. So who do you admire? What makes you unique? What's your favorite ice cream flavor? Things like that, just to kind of help challenge and increase the awareness of them. This is something that my kids really get involved in and get invested. And then I will slowly change the object to something a little bit harder or a little challenging to make it a little bit different for them to explore. So looking into how the straw hockey affects brain integration. So we are well aware that it improves collaboration amongst family members. You'll often get some teamwork from the other players that aren't doing, and encouraging them to be like cheerleaders. And you'll get some kids like giving tips and cheating a little bit, so you gotta be careful of those cheaters. But it makes it fun. It's a fun, positive engagement for everyone. It boosts self-confidence, and families individuals are able to recognize their strengths, and competitive sports or activities can improve that confidence. It also creates that opportunity for you to recognize and challenge when you don't win, how to redirect those behaviors. Of course, that heightened sense of endorphins helps improve your memory, and then also improves trust, which is going to help enhance that attachment bond between the individuals. And then just overall communication. We are then having to find ways and understanding different aspects about each individual, big or small, that they recognize that makes them feel a little bit more heard and acknowledged. And then if we look into the whole brain integration, this activity helps to improve bilateral integration. So bilateral integration is where you're connecting both the left and the right side of the brain. And so we're getting that bodily experience and a linguistic experience. So your left side and your right side are both actively engaged in this activity because you're having to have that movement and be able to find words, but also you're recognizing different ways to improve communication and expressing your emotions. So this one's just a very simple one, but it's a very effective, especially when you notice families that might be struggling in having fun, or families that may be struggling in understanding how to just be together as a whole. This offers that opportunity for them to be goofy, be silly, laugh, but also recognize how they can improve and strengthen their relationship bonds. All right, so the next intervention that we can try to use into family therapy is the boat storm lighthouse. And this is a really strong intervention. It allows, again, for that cohesiveness for families to communicate, but it also, again, allows you an opportunity to observe on how things are going. This one I will either do at the very beginning stages, depending on where the relationship is with the family, but I'll tend to do it in like the middle stages just to see how we seem to be improving in terms of the family cohesiveness. This is going to give you a great opportunity for you to see, are they seeming to communicate better? Are they seeming to recognize each other's strengths and collaborate and problem solve and kind of be on a little bit more on the same page? It's a fun, different kind of activity to explore and assess the family dynamics. So again, this is another one that you're going to get a poster board for. And then it's pretty simple, just markers and some coloring supplies. The family has to work together to draw a boat, a storm, and a lighthouse. Those are the only things that you are going to tell them to draw. The rest is up to them. The boat can be whatever kind of boat they want. The storm could be whatever the kind they want. It could be raining cats and dogs or butterflies if you want it to be. That's a-okay. And a lighthouse. And again, that can be whatever you want. So just those three components, and they have to work together to decide what each component's going to look like, who's going to draw it, how it's all going to come together, where each individual piece is going to take part, things like that. After they finish the drawing, and that'll take about 20 to 30 minutes, then you're going to have them to individually, I usually have them write down, but if they would rather verbally explain it, they can, but write down a story that they see individually that depicts that picture, that drawing together. And so that way you get each individual's perceptions of how that story is after they've already all worked together. And so then at the end, then they get to all share their individual stories. If you have them write it down in advance, then you don't have to worry about them changing their stories to match someone else's, because sometimes kids can get confused and forget things. If they can't write, they can tell you and you can write it down individually, things like that, just to make it a little bit unique for them. And then they each have to share their stories, and they can kind of discuss what different perceptions they might have. They can even expand on their story if they want to then make it a cohesive story that they can talk about. I would also encourage you to kind of explore and help them reflect on the different areas of the safety that they might have, or the things that they might have recognized as risks. If there were risks in their picture, usually there tends to be. So what were those risks and what were the safeties? How can they all work together so that each individual can recognize that they can lean on each other as a whole to build that unity. This is just a very brief drawing that I actually had one of my nieces draw for me, and she let me share it with you guys. And so this was her brief interpretation of a storm in a lighthouse, and the boat didn't quite make it on this picture, but that's okay. But just in kind of recognizing, like, she was able to do this on her own, but with the family unit doing this together, then it might be even more expanded. You might be able to explore who each individual is in the lighthouse, and that was her safe place. And it may not be family members that are in the safe place. It might be other people or even animals. And so kind of exploring what that all means individually. And like I said, if you do this in the middle of the session, or even in the middle of your treatment, or even towards the end of treatment, then it does allow you to recognize and see how their unity is all working together, their cohesiveness. And then is there any other areas that you might be missing based on how far things are or how well they work together? So in doing this activity, again, you get an opportunity for individuals to share feelings that might be underlying conflict within the family dynamics or within themselves. Again, it offers an opportunity for self-expression. It allows you to explore the family dynamics, and it allows that collaboration. If we look at whole brain integration, you've got, again, 3 different domains that are being addressed in this activity. You got the integration of consciousness. So again, that ability to increase the awareness of the underlying thoughts and beliefs that might be going on, the emotions that they may not be aware of, and your ability to see the dynamics that are going on, so then you can bring that to their awareness. The narrative integration, again, it offers an opportunity for them to create a cohesive understanding of where their relationships are presently, where they might have been to where they are now, make sense of their world, again, as a family dynamic, make sense of where the safety areas are. It just offers a sense of understanding, increased awareness. And then the interpersonal integration again. So interpersonal integration of that attachment, building relationships, recognizing different ways that they can come together and having that unity as a whole, that they just had to problem solve, and then they had to create this story, and they had to become all as one. So this is a great activity to make it fun and enjoyable, something different, things like that. All right, so then the last intervention that I wanted to kind of share with you guys is an activity called What Would They Say? This is another fun get to know you activity, something that families enjoy, just getting to have different experiences. It's laughable. I use the game Jenga just because it's quicker paced. Some clinicians, or sometimes I've used different games like Don't Break the Ice, things like that. Something that has a little bit quick pace. You want to be able to answer a bunch of questions during it, but then selecting a game that can be fun and engaging. I like Jenga because it also encourages active movement. I have those really large foam ones too that I'll whip out in family sessions, but then they have to do their full body. Any kind of full body or body work allows you to get up and moving and can create an increase in the ability to provide whole brain integration, because you're not just using your brain, you're using your entire part of your brain and your whole body to make sense. So I'm going to use the example with Jenga, but like I said, I use those really big like foam ones that you can get at the store. Those are really fun and kids love them. They're like half the size of kids, and it's pretty fun. So there's going to be some prompt cards. You would want to make the prompt cards in advance. I have a sample on the next slide that shows them, but there's sentence completion. So cards that they have to complete to recognize. So like my favorite color is ... And you're going to already have those, and then you're going to put those face down, and then you're going to encourage the family to play a quick round of Jenga or whatever it is. The last person or the loser of the game, they get to read the index card aloud, but then they're going to write down what their answer is. So they're not going to tell other people. If they can't write, then they can whisper it to the therapist or something so that way their answer doesn't change. And then when they are ready, then other family members have to go all around and they have to guess what that individual's answer would be. And so this is a fun activity for the families to kind of see what they do know of each other, and we'll go from there. And so just kind of something exciting and warm. The questions, I like to start off really, really fun and lighthearted, and then I get a little deeper as we go on. So this is going to be something kind of midline treatment. And then after the game, so near the end of our session, after they've played it several rounds, you're going to encourage the entire family to have a discussion of what the game revealed to them. So have each member reflect on what's something you learned about someone else here, what's something that you learned about yourself maybe, what were some of your favorite parts, what were some parts that maybe brought some anxiety, just to kind of increase this awareness as a whole and increase the communication of what's all going on with everything. And so again, these were some of the prompts that I use. So it goes, you know, from what my favorite color is, to even like recognizing who in the family gets angry the easiest or might cry the most. Just things to encourage communication, increased awareness for each member. And it's something fun. Every single member of the family needs to participate in this and have fun with it. And if there is a time, because sometimes some of these questions can bring up some turmoil, if there's something that seems to be upsetting or families are struggling with in the moment, you will want to make sure that you can try to process that in the moment rather than lapse and disappear. You want to make sure that you can process that and walk with them to talk about what might be going up. But with this activity, it's encouraging communication. Obviously, it's again exploring underlying family dynamics. It's helping them now verbalize what they might be thinking or what's going on. It encourages positive self-expression. You have no idea how much kids are going to love it when they get to talk about what their favorite ice cream is. And then their family has to guess, and if they get it wrong, it's a hoot. So having that self-expression is a wonderful thing. It also helps you understand and helps them explore the interactional patterns that might be going on. It helps everyone understand and get it out in the air of what are some of the main areas of concern. So definitely modify these questions to fit what you feel like is going to be best suited for the family dynamics that you're working with. And then when we look at whole brain integration, we have state integration in this one. And so this is an opportunity for us to recognize how we're being perceived by others. others are now telling us what they think our favorite color is or favorite ice cream is, or who cries the most. It offers this opportunity for us to increase our awareness of others and the perceptions that we have. And so increasing that awareness then creates a much broader awareness of empathy, interpersonal connections, attachments, and the works. So that is everything that I have shared with you guys. I know it was an awful lot, but I really enjoy using these interventions. I think that these interventions are perfect to encourage communication and attachment and that whole brain integration. And so I would encourage you guys to use them, even with your own family, just to have fun. Don't therapize them, but have fun, and just kind of explore how that goes. So if you guys have any questions, you guys are more than welcome to ask.
Jennifer, do you mind sharing your polling questions again?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let me pull them back up. Oh. Okay, so the first poll question is, how familiar are you with brain structure and whole brain integration?
And everyone, just respond in the chat if you feel like it. The polling questions are optional. You're not required to answer them, but we are required to share them.
And then the second poll question, when you guys are ready, is how often do you utilize creative interventions with your clients? It is awesome that I see a lot of people that they're really familiar or somewhat familiar. I think that that's a great thing, because it means that the word's getting out and people are having fun and everything. So I appreciate that. I think it's fun. All right, does anyone have any questions at all? Well, if not, then I think that that covers everything on my end. I really appreciate you guys bearing with me today, and I wish you guys the best of luck. And if you guys do have any questions, you guys are more than welcome to reach out to me and contact me.
Jennifer, is it okay if you would share your slides with myself or Colleen, and I can send you an email asking you to do so? And what we'll do for those that are interested, we will put them on the registration website next to your presentation information. So then they can just go in and download it, if that's okay.
Yeah, that would be absolutely perfect. I'll go ahead and do that for you guys.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye guys.